Welcome to the Contrarians, where we are right and you are wrong. I'm Julio.
And I'm Alex. Here on the show, we rage against the Rotten Tomatoes machine. For the first half of each episode, Contrarians Corner, we trash the fresh red tomatoes and praise the rotten green splotches, making our case any way we can.
The aptly titled Real Talk serves as the second half of each episode. This is where we discuss our true feelings on the movie we're covering. For more information on our podcast and to browse past episodes, you can head over to our website, wearethecontrarians.com.
From there, you can also access our Patreon and merchandise, because capitalism.
If you enjoy our attempts at comedic film discussions, we encourage you to subscribe and leave us a review on whatever podcatcher you use.
If you'd like to reach out to us directly, that's what social media is for. You can find us on most platforms as @ContrarianPrime.
You can also see what we look like if you go to youtube.com/@ContrarianPrime, and you can contact us by email at wearethecontrarians@gmail.com.
I think that covers it.
Then it's time for the podcast. And we are recording for Contrarians Corner for Batman Forever.
Hello, and welcome to the Contrarians, where we're right and you're wrong. My name is Alex, joined as always. I don't want to call you the Robin to my Batman. I would more or less refer to myself as the Robin to your Batman.
Oh, I thought you were going to call me the Alfred to your Batman.
You are old, so that would work out really well.
I'm also the voice of reason.
For the purpose, yes. For the purposes of today, I'm going to refer to you as the Tommy Lee Jones to my Jim Carrey.
Oh God!
But I will sanction your buffoonery in this instance. Yeah, because I can't do the Robin thing because Chris O'Donnell's such a little weasel in this movie. But we're here today to add. Have we done a Batman movie?
I mean, we've talked about Dawn of Justice. But it didn't get
I talk about Mask of the Phantasm every single chance that I get.
Yes.
So, yeah, unless we're massively blanking, and we could be at this point, we've talked about hundreds of movies, but I'm pretty sure this is the first feature-length Batman film we are entering into Contrarian's canon proper. And what a doozy to begin with. The Joel Schumacher neon-soaked fucking goddamn good time at the movies, known as Batman Forever. Topical in media recently with yet another attempt at screening the director's cut being shut down by Warner Brothers. And also, we talked about this a little bit. This is fitting in with our Summer of MTV Bangers motif, which Julio, I'll let you explain that in just a second. But also, we talked about when Val Kilmer passed, wanted to discuss a film of his, and we kept that in mind when we were crafting kind of the roadmap for our summer here. I still will get Julio to talk about MacGruber. Maybe we can throw that in the patron pile. But Julio, an interesting entry. I would say at one point in time a divisive film, but I think that is certainly softened in not just recent years, but probably the past 20 years or so. And a movie that has certainly benefited from the Elizabethtown effect.
Yes.
But not only that, it was a contender in the MTV Movie Zeitgeist. So what awards, nominations, victories, what have you, are we bringing to this entry?
I was going to say, Alex, nothing will make you appreciate Joel Schumacher's Batman than the realistic, ultra grim Batman that we've had in the past decade or so.
If you're referring to the Robert Pattinson entry that you discussed over on our Patreon, you dissuaded me from ever checking that movie out unless it's like I'm on a desert island and it's the only movie that's on there.
It's 3 hours, man. That's the main problem. Otherwise, I would tell you, sure, give it a shot. But no, I mean, why would you do that when you could just watch Batman Forever probably 3 times? In that, skipping through some of the stuff, skipping through the Chris O'Donnell stuff.
Thank you.
You can fit in a couple of showings. I was going to say we didn't know how good we had in the 90s, but we did, Alex. We did. That was what the MTV Movie Awards was all about. Celebrating the really good stuff, not the Oscar artsy-fartsy stuff. Batman Forever, it was a tough year, and a year that we've covered already because this was we visited this ceremony a couple of episodes ago when we talked about Tommy Boy, when Chris Farley and David Spade won Best On-Screen Duo. So they won. Batman Forever didn't get any wins, but it had 5 nominations across 3 categories. First of all, Batman himself, Val Kilmer, was competing for Most Desirable Male.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't win. That went to up-and-comer Brad Pitt. Got it for 7. And he hasn't lost the title since. Brad Pitt just in our hearts, Most Desirable Male, year after year. And then Best Villain. And I'm going to find these categories at the Oscars. Best Villain, Tommy Lee Jones and Jim Carrey split the vote, Alex. Do you think that maybe if Warner Brothers had submitted just one nomination, one of them had won instead of Christopher Plummer winning for 7? It's both Carrey as the Riddler and Tommy Lee Jones as Two-Face from Batman Forever, nominated for Best Villain, but no trophy.
They social networked themselves. They couldn't submit Justin Timberlake, Andrew Garfield, and Armie Hammer. There's just parts competing against one another.
Yeah. And then, man, that must have been an awkward table at the MTV Movie Awards. We'll get back to that. And then finally, in the one that I would have expected them to win out of every other category, Best Song for a Movie, they had, once again, they social network themselves, as you said, because they had U2's Hold Me, Thrill Me, Kiss Me, Kill Me, going against Seal's Kiss from a Rose, both classics in their own way. In this case, Alex, I know who you would be voting for. You're a Seal boy, right?
Dude, I listened through that stupid fucking U2 song in the credits just so I could get to Seal playing.
They don't play the whole thing, though. They miss like the really powerful part where Bono just goes off the rails. Sounds like he's having sex at the end of the song.
They had to truncate both of them. And the beautiful part of the credits is when they go to the soundtrack, before they do the traditional way you show music credits where you just scroll through them, they just have a still frame for a moment that just is the U2 song and the Seal song. So I respect it.
Yes. Anyway, as much as we and others loved them, they lost to Brandy's Sitting Up in My Room from Waiting to Exhale, a movie that I have not seen. But look, I think that if it can defeat the powerhouses that were U2 and Seal in the 90s, it must be worth checking out Waiting to Exhale. Anyway, that was it for Batman at the MTV Movie Awards, for Batman Forever, but it's not even, I was going to say the nominations are the real award, but no, the legacy is the real award. And right now, Alex, I would wager that more people are familiar and more people think more fondly of Batman Forever than most of the other Batman entries. This one, like you said, used to be divisive, but now it's kind of a Batman movie that unites us all because we all agree that, oh yeah, it was cool back in the day. All the other Batmans, except maybe the Keaton ones, will probably get into a fight with somebody online.
Even then, it's like Batman Returns, especially,
yes,
some people will just be vicious about in their response to. And then, yeah, Batman and Robin is legitimately bad. And I think that a lot of this movie's contemporary hate and for kind of the years that lingered afterwards was the association with Batman and Robin. And this is stuff we'll talk a little bit more about when we get to the second half. But, I was just kind of briefly considering what you're saying. You're probably right because, the Nolan trilogy, much like the recent Star Wars entries and Rise of Skywalker, rightfully so, I think there was a generation of fans that was their moment to hate.
Yes.
So if you talk about like the Batman Nolan trilogy, with some people, they'll just be like, sucked, stupid, and at that point you can't really have a conversation with them. But I feel that you're kind of onto something with that. Most of the time with Batman purists, you can drop Mask of the Phantasm, you can drop Return of the Joker, the Batman Beyond movie, and then Sub-Zero. All three of those animated movies that came out, and then you'll probably be able to have a level-headed conversation. But yeah, especially with time, the Jim Carrey and Tommy Lee Jones performances in this are really appreciated, and I think a lot of people too have come around on Val Kilmer's portrayal of Bruce Wayne and Batman as one that's positive, and also as red-blooded heterosexual man, I got nothing but respect for Nicole Kidman's performance in this movie.
How could you not?
No shit. That does not translate to, our eternal rival, Rotten Tomatoes, as currently, based on 70 reviews, it stands at 39%. A nasty green splotch. With surprisingly, based on what we just said, an even lower audience score, 33% based on over 250,000 plus reviews. The Popcornometer here reads, or displays, I should say, that sad green bucket tipped to the side.
I think Rotten Tomatoes just did an update. They didn't clear the cache and re-upload the page because
fortunately on Twitter people have figured it out that critics just used to be wrong, and it wasn't right. Rotten Tomatoes' fault for the way they accrued it. It was
this was before influencers really did justice to their name and influenced positively. Let's get some green splotches out of the way, Alex, to set the tone. We're gonna start with Sheila Reed from Women in the Life, who says, also known as Batman Whatever, the third installment in what appears to be a never-ending series. Man, it was only the third one. I guess fourth one if you count the Adam West one.
Yeah, that movie's great. Was that 67?
You're the one that has the VHS, so you tell me.
I have the VHS and the Blu-ray. 66 was the film, and it, of course, is famous and near and dear to Julio and myself because it premiered at the Paramount Theater in Austin, Texas on Congress Avenue, and they had like a ticker tape parade with all the full cast and full character and full regalia. So it's a lot of fun also.
A young Joel Schumacher shot the behind the scenes for the parade.
There's a great part where Adam West puts one of Catwoman's kittens on like a boat to get it out of the way of the fight, and he says, "Bon voyage, pussy."
I don't want to get ahead of ourselves here, Alex, but halfway through this movie, I know it's not okay. This is not a revelation. I mean, one of the things that people say about Batman Forever whether they're attacking it or defending it, is that it just went back to the tone of the Adam West Batman. But watching it tonight, it finally hit me that it's not just that, but also that Val Kilmer's performance it's kind of molded around the Adam West performance, and it brought me so much joy to make that connection.
But yeah, the idea of the never-ending franchise, that reviewer, I'm curious if they live to see today and what their thoughts are on that ideology.
Should call the latest Batman is just a never-ending Batman.
There you go.
Still playing. Next, Felix Vasquez Jr. from Cinema Crazed says, Batman is transformed into Flesh Gordon with a phallic Batmobile, bat nipples, and sexual chemistry with his young ward.
Are there nipples in this?
I didn't see nipples. I did see bat ass, which...
There's the butt, yeah.
Yeah.
I thought nipples didn't come along until Batman and Robin.
Yeah, I mean, I was distracted by all the other awesome stuff, so I stopped looking for the nipples after the first thing with the suit.
The phallic Batmobile is pretty sick. That's a good line. But no, I didn't see a cock when I looked at that thing.
I mean, I saw a cock when they gave me a close up of Batman's crotch. But
yeah.
I mean, we knew that was there.
His cod piece.
Yeah. Protect yourself. Chemistry with his young ward. I didn't get it. I didn't feel it. I mean, Nicole Kidman's right there.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe in Batman and Robin. I don't remember that one. Next, Alex Sandell from Juicy Cerebellum says, otherwise known as When Schumacher Goes and Wrecks a Good Thing. Man, disrespectful to begin with. But also, I don't think, okay, even if you consider that the Tim Burton Batmans are the good thing, Joel Schumacher didn't fire Tim Burton. Tim Burton fired himself when he made Batman Returns, and he freaked everybody out. Right? This should be called When Schumacher Comes and Rescues a Franchise.
Yeah, and also, I don't know if at any point in this does it attempt to sell, even with like the marketing material, did it attempt to sell you that, oh yeah, this is just a continuation of that shit where Danny DeVito is planning on murdering all these children.
The Riddler just wants you to watch TV.
The Riddler just wants you to use AI.
Yes. We're going to close with good old Ken Hankey from Mountain Express, Asheville, North Carolina, who says, where is Tim Burton when you need him? Probably making what? Ed Wood would have been around this time. Tim Burton pieced out. He said everything he had to say about Batman, and then he decided that it was time to move on to other things. He needed to get Martin Landau an Oscar.
Yeah, he would have been coming off of Ed Wood. That was 94, and then 96 was Mars Attacks. So he might have been already working on Mars Attacks.
Again, I don't see a problem with that. Look, you get a big name filmmaker to do 2 franchise movies in a row. Count your blessings. Don't start bitching about the fact that they didn't do a third one. Right? They have other things to do. That was the last quote, Alex. Closing with Ken Hankey. It's always a good thing. Let's go to Contrarians Corner.
Can I persuade you to take a sandwich with you, sir?
I'll get drive-through.
All right, going into Contrarians Corner, Joel Schumacher, our director du jour, coming in off of Falling Down in 1993, which is a fucking fantastic film. The Client, 1994, which I've never seen, but also with Tommy Lee Jones. Yep. So you have to believe that had a little bit to do with them working together once again. It was June 16th of 1995. I'm going to try to see if I can dig these up for our patron page, but I have the quartet of trading cards that they gave out for opening day that have the foil embossed opening day logo on them. I saw this movie in the theater, I assume with my family, but I definitely remember walking with my dad. I would have been, 8. There's one part in the movie I remember vividly from going to see in the theater, which I'll mention when the time comes.
Were they character cards? Or because if they are...
It was the 4 character posters. It was Batman, Robin, Two-Face, and Riddler.
Man.
Which I guess in the theater there was... the theaters were sent 5 character posters because I remember Nicole Kidman got her own poster as well.
I was about to say.
Yeah. No, it was probably best I didn't get that card as an 8-year-old boy. I just would have stared at it a bit too long.
But you get that one for your dad.
There you go. Put it in the garage next to the ashtray. Yeah, so I remember at the theater they had the character posters. God damn, I don't know if they still do that, but and then of course I'll just go ahead and call out once again, Batman Forever, arguably the greatest teaser poster of all time, certainly up there with the Phantom Menace, just with the question mark circling the bat signal, and also at the time the McDonald's glasses that you could buy, the marketing campaign for this, the toys, it was in full effect. I remember having a good amount of the action figures for this. I remember having all 4 of the glasses that were sold at McDonald's. We were fired up, so opening day was a big deal. And that wasn't just me, because at the time of release, Batman Forever had the highest opening weekend gross of all time up until that point, obviously, with a $52.8 million opening weekend, and that it had beat out Jurassic Park, which held the record at that point in time. A lot has changed, Julio, in the time since. Looking now at the top 50 highest opening weekends of all time, these are all within the 2000s, obviously, and most are within the past decade or so, as you would imagine, dominated by the mindless slop that is the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
If Marvel put out a special crossover in a couple of years where they team up with DC heroes and they get Chris O'Donnell to reprise his role as Robin, he comes in as Nightwing. He's the adult version now, which
he teases.
Yeah,
in this movie.
It's a chainsaw.
Yeah, it is. Just calling out for Contrarians lore, several of the Twilight films appear in these top 50 lists. So we've done a little bit of our part. So obviously what I'm trying to say is anticipation was high. In Gotham City, Batman diffuses a hostage situation orchestrated by the criminal Two-Face, formerly District Attorney Harvey Dent, who escapes. Flashbacks reveal that Batman failed to prevent Dent's disfigurement with acid by mobster Sal Maroni, causing Dent to develop a split personality, making decisions based on the flip of a coin and the sworn vengeance against Batman. So that's how the movie kicks off here. Julio, man, when this movie starts and the Warner Brothers logo turns into the bat signal, and then you see these names flying at you, it doesn't even say Batman. It just says Forever. That's what opens. I don't know about you. I was transported to a warm and fuzzy and much better time with these opening credits. And then to cap it all off, as we reveal this hostage situation with Two-Face, when he has his goons open these double doors, it reveals directed by Joel Schumacher. I mean, could we start on any higher of a note?
There was an art to opening a movie, especially when it was the third movie in a franchise and you had changed the lead actor, you changed the director, and you changed the tone of the movie. And Schumacher lets you know what you're in for right away. In case you were not paying attention and you were expecting Michael Keaton as Batman, you were expecting Tim Burton sensibilities as a director, because Burton can be a little campy on his own, right? He has that scene in the first Batman where he flies the Batplane into the moon, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
that's what I thought of too.
Anybody that complains about the cheesy stuff in Batman Forever but praises the Tim Burton Batmans, they need to reevaluate where they're drawing the lines and maybe rewatch Burton's as well as Schumacher's. But Schumacher does have his own take on it, right? It's more colorful. It's a little more, like, we're saying, like more like the 60s version, right? And I think that the combination of giving you those close-ups of Batman's body as he's putting his suit on, and then the completely unhinged performance from Tommy Lee Jones from the moment he steps into frame.
Dude.
It's like, you know what you're in for. In addition to the titles flying at you and the logo morphing, I mean, this movie establishes that you're in for a good time right away. And Tommy Lee Jones, man, let's do it right now, because we kind of have to. We mentioned it when we were doing The Fugitive, but he had a hell of a decade. I actually wrote it down, Alex. Started with Under Siege, then The Fugitive, then The Client, then Natural Born Killers, then Batman Forever, and then after Batman Forever, he still did Men in Black, Volcano, and well, he closed the decade with U.S. Marshals, which you can listen to a review of that on the Patreon. But still, that is. Going into this movie, I up till now, I always thought, well, yeah, it was like Jim Carrey was the leading 90s force here, followed maybe by Kilmer.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I mean, I think that Tommy Lee Jones might have been, if not the highest paid actor, probably the biggest get, right? This man's on fire.
Luck! Blind, stupid, simple, doodah, clueless luck!
I've always loved that when they show the clip of how he was mutilated in court, that I guess Batman was just in the gallery in full costume, and then he tries to jump the rail to prevent it from happening. It's one of those things that happens so quick in the movie that you don't think about it. But if you actually stop and you're like, wait, was he just like kind of sitting there with his spectacles on, like watching what was happening?
Was he with the jury or was he sitting with the defense?
One thing I do want to call out too with Schumacher's take on Gotham is that's different than any other real iteration we would see on the big screen. It is that sprawling, never-ending skyline with these skyscrapers that look like they're thousands of feet tall. And I'm not saying it's directly influenced by, but we're almost 3 years into the animated series at this point, which that art style was famous for those sprawling cityscapes and like those buildings that looked like they went on forever. You know what I mean? So I wouldn't have been surprised if Joel Schumacher took a little bit of inspiration from that. But the Gotham that's presented here is so fun and colorful. And I know that to purists, Gotham's supposed to be, a shithole of a city. But for us viewing this, it makes for a visual feast.
Yeah, no, this is the Gotham that plays Kiss from a Rose at the end of every prom. So, no.
Absolutely.
Statues. That's what I think of when I think of Schumacher's Gotham. The massive
the Statue of Liberty's there.
Yeah, that too. It says Gotham, I think, right? It has like a little thing at the top, a little bit of personalization.
Yeah, and they fly into that ad for like eye drops, which is always tickles me.
So, Alex, one of the controversial elements in this movie is Tommy Lee Jones's performance as Two-Face, because I guess some of the naysayers are like, well, this is not the Two-Face from the comics. I guess if you look at what we got later, right, the Aaron Eckhart take on the character is maybe a little closer because he's a little more serious maybe about the way that he conducts business whenever he flips that coin. I'm happy to see Tommy Lee Jones going all out. I mean, I think that's the only way that you can perform if half your face is neon purple. That's the level at which you have to act. But I also got the feeling that somebody had told him, hey, have you watched any Jim Carrey movies? Because that dude's gonna steal the movie from you unless you measure up right away. Do you think that Tommy Lee Jones has watched Dumb and Dumber or Ace Ventura? before stepping into set.
I would hope so, and he hated it. But yeah, it's you're exactly right, because from the second we see him until literally the last, it is the Tommy Lee Jones show. And Jim Carrey and him, I think personally have a really good dynamic in this, and the back and forth they have is just, who can top who. But yeah, Tommy Lee Jones, I don't think he considered this his moment in the sun, but he unwittingly or unknowingly rather provided us with a performance that people still talk about 30 years later, almost to the day, honestly. And that's something, considering a year prior to this, he gave what was perceived to be his most unhinged performance to date.
The man kept topping himself.
It's true. And he won an Oscar somewhere in between. Edward Nygma, an eccentric and egotistical researcher at Wayne Enterprises, approaches his employer, Bruce Wayne, to present an invention that can beam television signals directly into the brain, demanding immediate approval directly from Bruce. Bruce rejects the idea as he is irritated by Nygma and is concerned that the technology can manipulate minds. This would later become known as Fox News and later Newsmax. After killing his abusive supervisor, come on, man, you got to put some respect on Ed Begley Jr.'s name, and staging it as a suicide, Nygma resigns and plots revenge against Bruce, sending him riddles. Criminal psychologist Chase Meridian diagnoses Nygma as psychotic.
She also diagnoses Batman as really hot.
Yeah, so Nicole Kidman is hot for Batman. And they're like meet cute or meet hot. She literally, when she meets him at the beginning of the movie, she says hot entrance. And then she sets off the bat signal to try to get him to, it was the equivalent then of the Gotham equivalent of the "you up" text. And when Batman flies in, she's like basically explaining why she's hot for him, and he goes, "Chicks dig the car." And the best part of that whole scene, though, is that Commissioner Gordon, what was that actor's name?
Pat Hingle?
Pat Hingle. He runs out in his PJs like, what's going on?
Anybody can turn the bat signal on, apparently.
Shit.
I thought Gordon was the only one that had the key. I think that Gordon... Yes, he was an important character in the comics, but in the movies, it wasn't until Nolan decided that he wanted a big name to play the character that suddenly he became a character that play an actual part in the stories, right? Like the Burton movies and the Schumacher movies, they just have him in the background half the time as comic relief. And you know what? That is fine. One of the reasons that the latest, the Robert Pattinson Batman is like 3 hours long is because they have to fit in a story, a subplot about Gordon. I was like, no, just cut that shit down. Just give me focus on Batman. You're introducing Robin, so you don't have time to give Commissioner Gordon a story. You're introducing a new love interest, and you're introducing two villains. So wisely, this movie decides to keep Commissioner Gordon where he belongs most of the time, in the background. Just kind of fumbling around, getting really excited when he sees Batman. I like Pat Hingle, but that's the amount of Commissioner Gordon I need in this Batman movie. So I was glad that they didn't overreach. Now, Nicole Kidman, man, I could have watched a whole movie that was just about her trying to seduce Batman. And Val Kilmer just stammering and trying to play it cool. Do you think that part of the reason she's so aggressive sexually is because... a little bit like that Jim Carrey, Tommy Lee Jones thing. She knows that she's following up Michelle Pfeiffer as Catwoman as the love interest. So, man, what are you going to do?
Is that the only allusion to the Burton movies?
You like strong women. I've done my homework. Or do I need skin-tight vinyl and a whip?
Yes, because they definitely don't mention Vicky Vale. And Vicky Vale was like hot blonde, so you think that would have been the comparison. But
I thought you were going to say because knew she was going to be on screen with Val Kilmer, because god damn, what a handsome man he was.
Even with the cowl on.
Well, I was going to say, especially in the Bruce Wayne sequences in this. Yeah, it's, we know Nicole Kidman is so many things now, a serious actress and also the voice of the movie theater.
Yes, a lover of cinema.
A lover of cinema. But, you think about in the years after this movie, how many Oscars she's been nominated for. She won an Academy Award. And then, what we know her as an actress. And it's tickling. It's not funny because she's good in this movie. It's tickling to see her not only as the damsel in distress, but like this aggressively sexual, really hot, the sizzle of the steak, you know?
Yes. Because unlike Catwoman, she doesn't need to wear a costume to go after Batman, right? She is a civilian and she just goes at him from the beginning and doesn't let up. Even when Pat Hingle walks in on them, she's still flirting with Batman. She never backs off. It's awesome.
The script also doesn't ask her to demean herself and bathe like a cat at any point in it. So
no, she's a kickboxer or boxer. She doesn't throw any kicks. She boxes, right? That's what she's doing later in the movie.
She's working over the bag pretty well.
Yeah, so she can handle herself, and then she's smart because she's a psychologist. Since we haven't talked about him yet, other than to say how hot he is, Alex, Val Kilmer's Bruce Wayne. I told you I was like, oh, he's Adam West in the 90s, and that made it click because I was like, my first thought was like, he knows that he can't be as weird, as quirky as Keaton, but he can't just play hunk, right? Because the easy thing to say is like, oh, he's a hunky Batman.
He's hot and like he's really good in the public settings, but I think it's a really interesting performance from him because when he gets the riddles and stuff, his kind of more like I don't want to say nerd because that has a weird connotation, but his more like inquisitive side comes out that he doesn't show like to his dates or whatnot, and he's trying to figure those out. And like almost that one where you see him get excited when he figures out the first one, he's like, "It's a clock," you know, and I think it's good. You know, again, I think a lot of this movie's negativity in its time in the 90s, and you know, as long as that memory lasted, is lumped in with the hunk of shit that's Batman and Robin and Clooney. Man, what Clooney is just Clooney in that movie, and I guess that was the idea that you know George Clooney can be Bruce Wayne, and it's like, nah, dude. And I to your point, I think Val Kilmer gives a pretty interesting performance here.
I think that he's playing the most uncool Bruce Wayne that we've had. And that sets him apart more than anything else.
Despite being arguably the hottest.
Yes, yeah, but you know what I mean? Like he's so clumsy around Nicole Kidman. Because even Keaton, when he was sparring with Vicky Vale or with Michelle Pfeiffer, Selena Kyle, he seemed to kind of have his wits about him. But here, Kilmer, it's almost like a teenager that's talking to his crush, right? He doesn't have the confidence around women that other performances had, like especially you look forward. I didn't remember what Clooney is like in Batman and Robin, but you know, Bale in the Nolan trilogy, that Bruce Wayne, you would never see him acting the way that that Val Kilmer's Bruce Wayne does. He's always under control, whereas like Kilmer's Bruce Wayne, he's really thrown off his game by Nicole Kidman character, and it's delightful. It makes him relatable. He breaks down a door because he thinks that she's in trouble, and then he spends 5 minutes trying to apologize for it. It's awesome.
As we mentioned, Edward Nygma, played by the always charismatic Jim Carrey. He kills his boss here, Ed Begley Jr. And you want to talk about like an homage to the sillier days of Batman. Man, I laughed out loud when the Bruce Wayne comes in the next day with Commissioner Gordon. They're reviewing the tape. They're reviewing, the crime scene. And then someone walks in with this piece of paper and it's like on the, the Wayne letterhead. And it says like from the office of Fred Stickley. And it says in the memo line, "Re my suicide." And then it just says "Goodbye, cruel world." And Commissioner Gordon looks at it and goes, "Suicide, no doubt about it," or something like that. It's great.
This is probably my favorite Bruce Wayne moment because it's so understated. It's so like Schumacher doesn't make a big deal out of it, but it happens, which is that he tells his assistant to cover all the expenses for Ed Begley Jr.'s funeral, to give him like the severance, whatever. And the assistant goes, "No, but we don't cover suicide." And he's like, "I know, do it anyway." Fuck yeah. That's Bruce Wayne. And, he does it in a very quiet way because that's not the big thing, but that's, character-wise, that's the big thing. So Jim Carrey, Alex, this is after The Mask, after Dumb and Dumber, after Ace Ventura. Mm-hmm. He didn't have to try this hard. He was already at the top, but he does. He goes the hardest, I think, out of everybody, even harder than Tommy Lee Jones. Will you agree?
He is definitely all in on this one. I will say that. From the moment we see him till, he gets the last big scene of the movie, he was already, I think, wealthy beyond his wildest dreams at this point. but I truly appreciate the performance he gives here. And I remember like reading about it in like one of my comic books or maybe like Wizard magazine or something when they cast him as the Riddler. I was like, Ace Ventura? And so I remember as a kid being excited for this and rewatching this 30 years later, being excited for it again and thinking that he is really good and he's really funny. And, I'm sure you can do a darker portrayal of the Riddler.
They did.
Yeah. Well, I was more referencing like the Arkham games, the Arkham Asylum, Arkham City. But for the tone of this movie, both villains nail it. But for the Riddler character and just the psychosis and obsessive nature of the Enigma in this, I think he's fantastic.
He is, I think, the most memorable part of the movie. That is, when you think Batman Forever, what you should, if not, you were not paying attention, but what you should think of right off the bat is, oh yeah, that's the one with Jim Carrey out unhinging Tommy Lee Jones. I think he's proven to be an eccentric person from what we've gathered, Jim Carrey, that is. But he's also, I think, proven to be fairly savvy about movie business. So when I was watching him here, giving it his all after 3 movies where he had gone so big already, I felt that he was trying to not necessarily get it out of his system, but basically he has to have known that there was only so long that he could do this type of thing. You know what I mean? Like, you can't play characters on the level of Ace Ventura, The Mask, whatever, for the rest of your career. Like, eventually, you have to do the pivot to Eternal Sunshine, Truman Show, Dark Crimes, Jesus. So let's get the good ones out as early as we can, because who knows how long they love me right now, but at some point in the future they are probably going to turn on me for this exact same thing. So right now, while I have them on my side, let's give them the most over the top Riddler that I can, and he does. And all these years later, that's what we think of, and we think of it fondly.
Questions, Mr. Wayne. My work raises too many questions. Why hasn't anybody put you in your place?
Bruce attends a circus with Chase. Two-Face hijacks the event and threatens to detonate a bomb unless Batman reveals his identity. Dick Grayson, the youngest member of the Flying Graysons family of acrobats, manages to throw the bomb into a river, but Two-Face kills his family in the process. Bruce invites the now orphaned Dick to live at Wayne Manor as his ward, where he discovers that Bruce is Batman. Seeking to avenge the death of his family, Dick demands to join Batman in crime fighting, hoping to kill Two-Face, but Bruce declines in order to help Dick move on instead, as he is considering retirement. Now, the scene at the circus here, what I did not remember was that Joel Schumacher got his friend Brian De Palma on the horn and had him come in and shoot this whole sequence. It's just constant De Palmian-like shots at one after another. It's crazy.
No boobs, though.
No, and it's not here, but later in the movie where there's like that benefit that Two-Face and the Riddler come in and take over, and Batman crashes in through like the skylight in the building. There's this shot of Nicole Kidman surrounded by people, and she looks up and the camera like zooms in. That is straight out of Blowout, dude. That was like
when Travolta crashes through the skylight.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Chris O'Donnell, the Robin we didn't know we needed. I was very grateful that Schumacher went with the idea of giving us a college age Dick Grayson, because as campy as this movie is and as lighthearted and fun and whatever, that's the exact tone where you go wrong if you put in a kid actor.
Yeah. Teenage
Robin would have been unbearable. Like, Chris O'Donnell is towing the line already as it is, with how much shit I'm gonna take from him. But I was like, all right, at least he's not a precocious kid that figures out Batman's secret identity. It's an acrobat, and we'll make fun of O'Donnell, but that close up after his family dies a horrific death, which that's the thing. I thought that's what you were gonna say, Alex, that you had forgotten that this movie's fun and games, and then the Graysons die in a very brutal manner.
One of them's laying with like their arm behind their back, like just completely dead. It's such a sad visual.
Yeah, they don't even get shot kind of like off camera. No, like I guess they get shot, but it's up high, and then the fall kills them, and it's just awful. And the shot lingers on that, and then there's a close up of Chris O'Donnell just watching it all happen and becoming Robin. He doesn't even know it yet. Also appreciated that they have the original costume for Robin, at least, you know, when they're acrobats in the circus. That was cute. Eventually, the movie gives him a more 90s costume, but to see him at least with the old like green, red, and yellow at the beginning, that was kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
Did you like Val Kilmer? Is this a throwback to the first Burton movie when he screams, "I am Batman," but nobody hears him?
I guess so.
It comes shortly after he friend zones himself with Nicole Kidman.
Oh yeah, tries to go rock climbing.
Yeah,
she's like, I met someone. This leads eventually to a chase scene between Two-Face and his goons and Batman, where like we get one of the cool visuals of the movie where the Batmobile shoots vertically up a side of a building. And I just took note of it because Two-Face, you know, Tommy Lee Jones gets out of his car and like shakes his fist angrily while this sax wail on the score happens. It's like, wow.
I think it's the only time that we've seen the Batmobile go up a building, right? Like Nolan didn't
no
do
complaints.
Yeah, no, it looks awesome. That's something else that Nolan decided was too much for his movie, right? Too much to actually call Robin, and too much to have a Batmobile that can do fun stuff. Like Nolan's Batmobile just plows through things. That's all it does. But the Schumacher Batmobile, it has a hook and it can just go vertical. It's awesome.
Nigma becomes the Riddler and teams up with Two-Face. They commit a series of robberies to finance Nigma's new company and mass produce his brainwave device dubbed the Box, which steals information from minds and transfers it to Nigma's, increasing his intelligence but slowly causing him to lose grip on reality. AI. At a party hosted by Nigma, Batman pursues Two-Face and is almost killed until Dick saves him. Okay, so the reveal of the Riddler happens at Two-Face's hideaway, where we're first introduced to his two girlfriends, Sugar and, you guessed it, Spice, played by Drew Barrymore and the latter Debbie Mazar. Two just iconic faces of the 90s in tremendous, you know, the dichotomy of man wardrobe here. We have Drew Barrymore, who's angelic, and then, of course, Debbie Mazar, who's devil-like. Just incredible set for this and wardrobing, and you know, I can't say enough about that. But both of them play their part really well. Drew Barrymore, it's kind of funny to think about. People knew who she was, obviously, at this point in time, but we are on the heels of her becoming like a superstar. You know, there was Scream, and then The Wedding Singer. Ever After, Home Fries, Never Been Kissed. So in the next few years, she goes from a well-known actress in Hollywood to being like a leading lady.
She almost became the Tommy Lee Jones of her lane.
And of course, people know who she was because we talked about she was the only person anyone knew in Scream, and that's why it made it insane the way that movie started. So
it's Sugar.
It's
oh my God,
Two-Face's, it's Two-Face's nice girlfriend.
So the implication is that this is a throuple? Like Tommy Lee Jones is getting down with both of them?
I hope so. For all their sakes. Yeah, Jim Carrey's great here, though. The reveal of his costume, and he dubs himself the Riddler, and he's going through the rigmarole, and Tommy Lee Jones just pulls a gun on him and threatens to shoot him, and then they like hatch this plan together. And then we get the montage of them, you know, robbing jewelry stores and I think a casino. It shows them at one point. And it's got the part where Tommy Lee Jones, Two-Face, tries to teach the Riddler how to throw a punch. Says, ball up the fist, reach back, and assert yourself. And of course, he knocks the guy out. And then Jim Carrey tries to punch him, and the guy doesn't budge. And he just holds his hand and goes, ow! It's so simple, but it still makes me laugh.
Good chemistry between them. You wouldn't have known that they hated each other behind the scenes. Now, while they're doing this, Alex, Master Grayson is getting settled at Wayne Manor, and we get, I think, what's turned into an iconic scene or something that people reference, which is the ninja clothes washing. If I say ninja clothes washing from Batman Forever, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's
oh yeah,
Chris O'Donnell showing Alfred how it's done in the circus.
Leave that, Master Dick. I'll attend to it.
I'm not used to being waited on, Al.
I guess maybe at some point in history we would have made fun of it, and now it just seems really fun and endearing. And I feel like that's the moment where Chris O'Donnell wins you over as Robin. Because as he walks away, he kind of winks at Alfred. It's like, I know, I'm cool. Is that when he captured your heart?
The scene could have ended my life at one point in time in college. I was driving myself and my buddy shut down Brown, and I think my buddy John was in the car. It might have been, the girl I was dating at the time might have been with us too. I just remember Zach was there because he was the one that reacted. We're driving maybe Temple or something, but I was driving and somehow we got on the subject of this, and I started acting it out in the car with whilst driving. And the part where like he takes the pant leg and then like circles it around and then like rings it out with his hand. I was like acting this out and like then inadvertently kind of swerved the car almost into the 18-wheeler that was like running parallel next to us. And so I'm like, I kind of wish I had like footage of it, like a dash cam, you know, because I'm doing the nunchuck socks. Then I'm, wielding the shirt on the mop handle and then doing and then we swerve and like, and then I just remember my buddy shut down like yelling in the car. And then when we got back, like maintained composure, he's like, yeah, it's a funny scene, but not worth dying over. So I know quite well what you're referring to.
Well, I think that audiences around the world, everywhere, this is when they fell in love with Dick Grayson. So then you forgive him that he's kind of a shithead and
annoying as fuck.
Yes.
Yeah, he steals a Batmobile and he finds out that at night, after midnight in downtown Gotham, they just turn on black lights that strode throughout the city, and that everyone wears fucking Jeff Hardy face paint and goes out and parties.
Gotham rave. That's what I have.
That works as well. Batman visits Chase, who explains that she's fallen in love with Bruce, which gets an incredible shot of Val Kilmer smiling in the bat cowl. And Bruce reveals his secret identity to her. I mean, kind of. He explains like when his parents died, the thoughts he went through and the life he committed himself to. And she's like, what are you trying to tell me, Bruce?
No, but then, and this is the one part that really bummed me out while watching this movie, because I realized that Sam Raimi had stolen the kiss thing that happens at the end of Spider-Man, the first Spider-Man, when Mary Jane kisses Peter, and then she has that moment where she's like, wait, are you Spider-Man? Because that's what happens to Chase here, right? She kissed Batman when he went as Batman to her place at midnight, as she had requested. And then she kisses Bruce, and you can see it on her face. She put two and two together. It's just that, they were interrupted. But man, that is, again, the talent on Nicole Kidman to make this character likable and somebody that we just enjoy watching. When she is playing Batman and Bruce, she has them wrapped around their fingers. Him wrapped around her finger. She makes Batman go all the way to her house, swallow his pride. She's almost naked, opens the door, kisses him, and then it's like, you know what? No. Did Batman go and like furiously jack off in the Batmobile after?
Jesus. I mean, the unfortunate thing for him is in that suit, I don't think it has much give. So he's clearly not just walking down the streets of Gotham with a huge boner, just like Jim in American Pie 2 with his hand glued to his dick,
Alfred, I need some help.
Having discovered Bruce's secret through the box, this is the Edward runs it. He runs his gimmick on Batman, so he sees what's in his head. It's a bat, so they figure it out. Two-Face and the Riddler destroy the Batcave, shoot Bruce, and abduct Chase. As Bruce recovers, he and his butler Alfred deduce that Nigma is the Riddler. Nigma. Edward Nigma.
Mr. E. Mystery.
I always remember that delivery from Val Kilmer. Bruce finally accepts Dick Grayson as his partner, Robin. And in doing so, Chris O'Donnell, I mentioned this earlier, but to circle back, he declares that he needs a name, and he does drop Nightwing. So Joel Schumacher still paying a little respect to the subject material at this point.
The thing that they see in how they figure out that Bruce Wayne is Batman is because they download images from his brain. Don't think about it. Just go with it. But the movie keeps showing us these images and the flashbacks, dreams that Bruce has been having. And I thought it was pretty classy way of retconning something that Burton did in his first movie that really pissed me off, which was having the Joker be the guy that kills Batman's parents. That was a really dumb plot point, unnecessary. That's the kind of thing that you do when you don't, I guess you didn't read the comics. You don't realize that it's a lot more awesome when there is no, when it's just a random criminal that killed him instead of his arch enemy. And so here when Bruce starts having the dreams and talking about them, and what you see is this shadowy figure shooting his parents, and it's not Jack Nicholson. I was like, yes, he is. They're taking care of it. They're fixing. They're saying that it never happened. It doesn't matter if you saw it happen in the Burton Batman. That's not how we're playing it here. We're rewriting history, and in this continuity now, Bruce Wayne's parents were killed just by a nobody, and the universe is so much better for that. I don't think that there's any other iteration of Batman media in the comics or in movies, animated series, anything where they tell you that the Joker killed his parents. So I'm glad that we didn't make that mistake ever again.
Your memories are trying to break through. Don't fight them.
I want to tell you something. Something I've never told anyone.
At the Riddler's lair, in which Jim Carrey's wearing his WrestleMania gear, he has like his special Riddler attire and hairdo. Robin defeats Two-Face, but chooses to spare him, allowing Two-Face to capture Robin at gunpoint. The Riddler reveals his final riddle. Chase and Robin, representing the two sides of Batman's personality, are trapped in tubes above a deadly drop, and he only has time to save one. Batman distracts the Riddler with a riddle himself before destroying the Riddler's brainwave receiver with a batarang, damaging the Riddler's mind and enabling Batman to rescue both when he sees the floor is an optical illusion. And he also, when Jim Carrey's completely brain dead, he tells him, I am Bruce Wayne and Batman, so I can do both. Two-Face corners them and flips his coin to decide their fate, but Batman throws a handful of identical coins in the air, causing Two-Face to fall to his death. Another kind of, gray area here, Julio. Batman doesn't kill, but he certainly doesn't prevent Two-Face from dying here.
He just rescued two people that were falling in the exact same manner.
But if he had saved him, we wouldn't have got that fucking money shot of Two-Face landing, and as his body sinks to the bottom of the Gotham Harbor, his hand catches the coin right before it submerges completely.
Yeah. I think that they do an okay job establishing that as long as you don't kill them directly, then it's okay to let them die. That's the thing that Robin didn't learn earlier in the movie, right? Because all he had to do was not pull Two-Face up when Two-Face is falling. As long as you don't step on his hand or something, then that's okay. It's fair game. That needed to be explained. Schumacher, in case anybody missed that this was supposed to be an updated version of the 60s TV series, in the greatest chainsaw of them all, he has Chris O'Donnell say, what is it? Holy rusted metal. Yeah, holy rusted metal. Yeah.
I mentioned that there was one part that I remembered, and I was kind of saving that for the lead in. There was one part that I remembered vividly from being in the theater, and it was, of course, a sold-out theater because it was opening day. And I had read enough comics at that point, and I'd probably been familiar enough, watched some reruns of the Adam West series to know the blank 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 Batman. The exclamatory. I remember that tore the house down, and I don't remember where I saw that, somewhere in the greater Toledo, Ohio area, but I remember that got a huge reaction, and I can still see it in my mind, watching it on the screen where he's kicking, and he's like, the ground, it's rusted metal, it's full of holes.
Holy. Sometimes today, when Chris O'Donnell feels a little down, he just puts in his Batman Forever DVD No, it's a VHS because he has a cue to that one moment.
Laserdisc.
Yes.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. The VHS. It's like countless unforetold amounts of boys who had the Titanic VHS set to Kate Winslet's tits. Yeah.
Yeah. So and he just plays it and he chuckles to himself. The greatest moment in his career. And that's it, Alex. They do something that's almost, at the time, at least in superhero movies, kind of unheard of, which is that they let at least one of the villains live, especially a villain that had uncovered the hero's secret. So do you remember watching this and thinking, but what happens now that the Riddler knows that he's Bruce Wayne?
Yeah, he got his brain fried by all the overload of information. He OD'd on info. Yes. And I remember finding the ending to this kind of like, oh man, he's crazy at the time. And now I love this as to bring it home here. Committed to Arkham Asylum, Nigma exclaims that he is Batman, having become completely delusional due to his scrambled memories. Bruce resumes his crusade as Batman with Robin as his partner. So Chase finds out, she's checking in and finds out that Edward is claiming to know the true identity of Batman. And she goes to his cell and you can't see him and asks Edward who is Batman. And he appears in the light, with his issued wardrobe on that he's torn pieces of to resemble, flaps, and says, "I'm Batman." And I think it's a great fucking bait and switch that they do there. And she goes back and tells Val Kilmer, "You're good. He's crazy."
Don't stay out too late.
Yeah, that's right. So quite the roller coaster for 2 hours with some really memorable performances and standout scenes. And as I mentioned, audiences spoke with their wallets. This thing went on to make almost $340 million and is a movie that we're still talking about today. And I mean that genuinely. This is something that still comes up and is regularly discussed, not just with like the director's cut, but just the merit that it comes along with. So I think, Julio, we've made our case here with that 39% being a bit unfair. And I'm assuming we're going to continue that discussion when we get to Real Talk.
Yes, we will. Let's do it.
Let's go.